there's so much, and I don't want to rush it. Um,
It's much more pleasant to be in natural air conditioning from that pond than it is in my apartment with its beautiful views with no air conditioning and tar being spread out on our front
Yeah.
porch. They're taking beautiful old 1920s tile and putting this white rubber stuff, this black rubber stuff on it.
Would you want to live anywhere else?
Yeah, I want to go back to Greece.
Oh, okay.
yeah, we haven't even gotten to that good part. I think we're just before going to Greece, right? We're in California, you divorce, you've got a young lover, and you're ready to.
Oh, he wasn't so young.
This woman the other day,
That happened later.
this female comedian, she said, people ask me, my husband and I were married for a long time, to death do us part. She said he would never die. And she said, people said, well, what's the key to living a long and loving marriage? And she said, well, I can tell you what it's like to live in a long marriage. So you're living in Berkeley,
Mhm.
and you divorce,
Mm-hmm.
and what made you decide, why did you go to Greece?
Well, a lot of people would think it was because of a man, but it wasn't. I've always been very much in love with Greek mythology. And at this point in time, the goddesses and this woman writer, Maria Gambardis, had come out with the idea of the matriarchies that preceded the patriarchal religions. So, listen, when I was 12 years old, I was worshiping Aphrodite because she was also a star, but I thought I knew her as Venus then. And that was strictly a little bit about who I was and still am. I live in literature, you know, and when I'm lucky, I can write it. When I don't live in an apartment building, it's an 8-hour day a job. Anyway, what was the question?
Why did you go to Greece?
Okay. I always had cats, and I never could travel abroad because I had too many cats. And it never was the right time. So, after the divorce, I did start seeing a Greek man from the island of Peter. And he was always quoting out of George Huxley. I don't know which one of the Huxley, but saying,
Aldous.
who?
Aldous.
Maybe. Anyway, probably George. But anyway, he would say to me, oh, Barbara, you're just not ready for the island of romantic love. And eventually I understood what he meant. In the 1980s, it was like 1950s in America. That island was primitive. The most delicious place had no beach, had no electricity. You could see stars forever. I have a book called The Woman on the Roof of the World, which is the poetry I wrote there. Anyway, so I said, well, you don't think so. So a lady friend of mine and I had gone previously to Scotland and England, and I had traveled to other places. And so I said to my lady friend, let's go to the island of Kythera on Greece, but we'll do the whole thing. We'll do Crete, blah, blah, blah. So we did. And it was kind of in defiance that I went to that specific island. But whatever the reason, it was a goddess sinned. It was the right thing. And it may have been the wrong thing to leave it.
How long were you there?
Off and on, starting in 1985, I would spend the summers there, and then I'd come back and teach, and then I'd go spend the next, up to the
And when you came
secondary.
back, where did you teach?
I taught at Alameda High School, and then I substituted in all the high schools in the general area. Berkeley, Oakland, Haywood. But that was more flexible than taking a real job. And it paid well. So anyhow, enough to travel. And I would rent whatever apartment I had at the time to students for the summer. I'm getting a little inundated. I'm sort of like, what was the question again?
When you came back, where was you teaching? You'd go back to Greece in
Yeah,
the summers.
in the
and you'd
summers.
come-
And then in 1994, right after the earthquake, you know, the one that smashed the big bridge down on the top of the island, I went to Greece, and in defiance of this man. And our relationship kept going off and on for about 8 years. And it was never really demanding, but it was never really wholesome. Then in 1994, I said, enough of this back and forth. I'm going here to live. So I arranged a house, a beautiful little neoclassical house. And that's not what I thought I was going to get. I thought I was going to get a much older house, which I was prepared for, but this was the one they were renting. It was one of those accidents. So for $300 putting in electricity, I had got 4 years to stay there. That was back in the day of the drachma, when we hit the euro-dollar. That's what ruined me. Boy, I'm not back there living on a tiny piece of property that I bought with my inheritance of selling my mom's house. And right now, my niece is here, and she and her husband are the ones who will inherit it, and I want them to help me fix it up.
You still own it?
Hmm?
You still own the house in Greece?
Yeah. A ruin. I own a Greek ruin. I mean, it sounds really silly to say that I own something, but yeah, I have to be truthful. It's a ruin, but it's a lovely ruin.
How old were you at the end of that 4 years?
You mean when I was teaching?
Well, when you moved to Greece full time and you were there 4 years in that house.
It was like 45. I didn't travel until after 45, until after my 40s. So it was like 45. It was a good time to travel. It was also a good time in my writing, developing as a writer. So when I came back, my brother and my sister needed me back here to help with Mom. Mom was, Daddy had died in the 70s. She was living alone, and she had been given 2 years to live with myelin something, dysplastic anemia, which turned into leukemia. So I came back and was her companion for 4 years, and it was a battle. It was a war. She had no use for the fact that it was me and not my brother that was, essentially, I wasn't a caregiver. She had home health care. And, but anyway, so then at the end of that, I was going back and forth to Greece every summer, but at the end, when Mother died in 2098, I went back to San Francisco and taught for a while at a wonderful program. It was independent study. They were working with truants, giving a whole week of work, and then you have a contract with the parent, a contract with the kids, and then at the end of the week they come back for their assignments and give you the assignments from the week before, but they don't have to come daily to school. It was wonderful.
Huh.
I loved it. So then my sister and I sold the house in Nebo, and I came here to. There it is.
How long have you been in Nashville?
2002. November 2002.
Okay, 17 years.
Yep.
At the, where you are now? Wow, so you went in when it just switched over to housing, because it was the old hotel.
Yeah, it switched over in '85. So I was as a senior citizen,
Right.
subsidized
Right.
housing. I have loved it. It's getting a little worse. I'm having 120 housemates. And then this construction's just about finished me off.
Oh, interesting.
Because in somehow symbolically and probably actually, they are destroying the historical value. I wrote a history. We had a little newspaper for about 7 years, and I was a co-editor, and I wrote a little history of the Battery Park. But I love Asheville history. I love it.
I know you wanted to read something before we
Okay.
finish up. Do
This
you
is-
are you satisfied with ending where we are, or do you want to do another additional taping and come back and talk more about your travels around the world besides Greece and those stories?
I went to Yugoslavia. You get out of the country to renew your passport.
Was Tito?
No,
in power
he was
then?
dead. I don't know who was in charge. I was only there overnight. Got then I went to Bulgaria. You went to the Balkans, didn't you?
Yes. I went to the Baltics.
Where is that?
Finland, Norway,
Ah.
all the Scandinavian up in that.
Baltic Sea.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Turkey yet. I want to go to Turkey.
I did too.
Here, I'm going to read this, and this is Ron Rash, from Eureka Mills, the book Eureka Mills. And the reason that I think it's important in this discussion is that this is probably the kind of material that persuaded my grandfather Hicks and his family to come from Madison County to Clinchfield. And it's called A Handbill Distributed in Buncombe County, North Carolina, 1915. And it's a poem, kind of a prose poem by Ron Rash. 3 years ago, I owned a mountain farm. 2 mules, 2 cows, several calves and hogs.
I'm going to ask you to start over because I want to capture that and I want
Okay.
to share it with Valerie.
Okay.
Because she won't see this over here for a while.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Handbill distributed in Buncombe County, North Carolina, 1915. A poem, prose poem by Ron Rash. From the book Eureka Mills. 3 years ago, I owned a farm, 2 mules, 2 cows, several calves and hogs. I raised a lot of wheat, tobacco, and corn. Most years I did quite well, or so I thought. But after feeding livestock through the winter, buying children's shoes, paying back what I owed for seed and fertilizer, I'd worked a year and hardly broken even. I sold my stock and farm, paid off my debts, moved my family to Eureka Mill. In that mill, my 14-year-old girl earns more than a grown man in the hills. The mill provides you with a place to live, coal and firewood brought right to your house door. They treat you like a king. I only wish I'd brought my family down here earlier. If this testimony makes you want a future working for our company, please contact us at Eureka Plant, located east of Chester, South Carolina. That's it. That's how they lured all the mountain men down to.
That's great.
Isn't that it?
Do you have any of your poetry?
I have right here the first book. I didn't get to the, I was once the Western Carolina representative for the Institute on Aging, so I was going to send it, but I didn't send it to them. Anyhow.
Can you read one of yours?
Sure. This is the grandmother whose picture is here. Well, whose picture is, I'll give you a bigger picture of her.
I'm gonna take the camera off after.
Oh, we'll do this. We'll do
Yeah,
this
I'll-
later. Yeah, okay. It's called Keepsake, and it got quite won the Jessie Stewart Award in 1972, which is when I wrote it, and it's commemorative to my mountain grandmother from Sevierville, Barbara Jane Spurgeon Loudermilk, and it begins. Here is the large, ornately framed portrait of you made in 1900. At 21, brown hair and a face more Irish than Scot. The decorum of the times, highly evident, did not disguise the twinkle always there in your blue eyes. On your buffet, Grandma, recent photos show me as droll as Mrs. Santa or Mother Goose. At 33, I grow to a gargoyle. 2. The old Philco radio grins out from it. It's his small face of knobs and dial. His upright fluted cabinet now serves as a TV table. There was a time once when we scared ourselves to death with the FBI and peace and war and inner sanctum screeching door. 3. Day-wise and recovered, we hoed the glads and dahlias, watered begonias in big green pots, and then rocked on the porch as you enthralled me with your foot-log tales of a Tennessee girlhood. After supper, likewise with your Cortonal lap road buggy rides. Ha. Grown maidenly and spindly, I looked into the mirror of your good Protestant face. Mirror of my granny's face, have I beauty? Am I pretty? You answered, you're somewhat fair, and don't go thinking that you're more you. Never too generous as to be untrue. Pubescent, having learned some simple witchcraft of herbs and roots from you, I dreamed that night that I flew straight out your kitchen window. There was always about you the sweet birch sapling for all your matronly hats and brooch trim dresses, more than feminine. You were the human stuff of earth and forest, root, soil, and tree. This is what I want to be, endowed with your tree's blood, persimmon sap, if you will, sour and tart in my veins, flesh from your flesh, bone from your bone, slender shanks mare and the crooked foot, mine less delicate than yours, and the strong wrist. Such stuff as made you, made me, and I go forth with less fear knowing this. Deep from inside of me, your wry voice rises to teach me to denounce the inconsequential things of this earth. China birds that cannot fly, and painted flowers that do not die. To teach me to uphold the things that matter, patchwork quilts for warmth and mirth, and keepsake potted plants that bind us to the earth. This is your final portrait. You recline, fine and fancy, all the buckets and urns filled with warm milk, deep in the sleep of death, apples stored in the cellar. I want one last time to touch your warm speckled brown rims, to touch the warm speckled brown rims that were your hands. And this is the last prank you played me. I touch them, they are cold and leaden, China birds that cannot fly. I'm startled. A good one on you, I think I hear you say. Then I laugh.
That's wonderful. That was her poetry.
Right.
Wow.
Wow.
The name Helen Hunt resonates with me. I don't know. See, I was West Coast, and the East Coast women were
That's right. Yeah.
two different things.
Right.
So that's Mama. This is Grandpa and Granny. This is the A model. This is the 38 Ford. This is my mama. That's my daddy. That's Granny and Grandpa.
You can leave it on the table.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. You're good.
And that's my Granny and Grandpa's family. It's just a tiny thing. I should have it blown up. I will. I had this marvelous book made, and I lost it. It got eaten by our apartment building.
All right.
Now, here's the Hicks boys. There's that awful thing there. That's Grandpa Doc. And that's Harriet, their oldest daughter, who came to the mills before they did with her husband. That is Bailey. That is Edis. That is Roscoe.
Where are you at?
This is in the next one.
Oh, okay.
This is my father, his brother, and Holly, Gabe, Roy. That's the one that went to the war. Luetti and Marion. Now here's the other one. I'm that baby right there. And these are the sons and the wives with the families.
Can you
Oh,
hold up that picture
yeah.
with?
You want to get some still shots too, don't you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry about the tear, but you know.
Can you slide the picture out of the sleeve?
Yeah. Can you slide it out of the sleeve?
Oh, sure.
See, that's the better.
Is there any chance I can have copies of this video?
Yeah.
Good, because it sure will help me. It'll make up for my having lost that graphic outline. Ready?
Did you get the nickel tour?
Yeah. I tried to get the 25-cent massage, but we couldn't figure it out.
Which one did you read?
This one,
Oh, okay.
Cannon Bill. It's on page 8.
Did you look on the bookshelves all around the library when you went by? See, I was thinking maybe somebody could just put it aside or something.
I think it was stolen, not because of the book, but because of the, pad.
A legal pad or?
Mhm. Pleasant face.
Think about birds and nature and
All right.
bees and lichen. You ever ate any lichen?
Yeah. Funny that you said that. That's the name of the poem. Gray Lichen is the name of the poem about my grandfather, Latimer, that I can't find because my house is